We're going to go to a subject that's quite a long way removed from heart attacks and strokes, although you might think you're having one if your dog is chasing a rabbit or a rat and you can't get it back. Sometimes you might look at your dog and wonder what they're thinking. Well, Darren Rowe lives with 7 dogs, 2 Irish setters, 5 border collies, and some of them are rescue dogs. He's the owner of Mindfulness for Dogs in Hamilton, and he's also the president of the Association of Professional Dog Trainers New Zealand. And I've got a lot of questions to ask him about positive reinforcement. Good evening, Darren.
Good evening, Karyn. That's quite an introduction there.
Well, 7 dogs. Where are they all at the moment?
They're all in bed. They're all tucked away in their crates at the moment, happily snoring away probably.
They've got crates?
They do, yeah. So all our dogs sleep in their crates. They've had crates since they were puppies, and they'll have crates until they're no longer with us.
How does that help their lives?
So we think of the crates as a bit like your kids, is a bit like their bedrooms. So they've got their own space to go if they're getting a bit stressed or getting a bit worried. They can just take themselves to their crates. Lala, one of our rescue dogs, she's a little bit, she's a blue merle. She's a little bit loopy sometimes. Anyone that has a blue merle border collie will know what I'm talking about. And she just takes herself to bed about sort of 7, 8 o'clock. Just goes to bed.
That's amazing. And they have blankets and everything in there. What do you put in there? What do you line their beds with, their crates with?
Yeah, so we just get blankets from the op shops and just put them in there. We used to have really fancy beds, but sometimes dogs chew their beds, so blankets are always a good option. And then you can always support the local dog charity as well. So
are they all lined up next to each other, 7 in a row?
Yeah, so the collies do. All the 5 collies are all in a row. Apologies. The setter, Fred is a very, very big setter. So he's actually he has his crate, but he normally sort of just comes outside and sleeps on the blanket outside because it's we haven't got a crate big enough for him.
Well, that's great. All right, we're imagining your Irish setters and your 5 border collies. Quickly, can you tell me the rest of their names? Lala, who else?
Yeah, so we've got Lala and Pixie.
Yes.
These are the border collies. Lala, Pixie, Twinkle, Star, and Stella. And then we've got Billy, who's an Irish setter, and Fred, who's an Irish setter.
That's great.
I have to admit, I don't name my dogs. My wife names them, I have to admit.
And you remember which one? Of course you do. I mean, they're children, aren't they? I've got some questions for you, and I'm going to put them to you. So this is from Linley. 14-month collie cross with very poor recall when distracted chasing rabbit smells. At other times, good recall, but when distracted, it's like she's totally deaf. I don't keep calling, but will wait and call again when she's close. Suggestions, please, to ensure recall every time?
Yeah, so first of all, that 14 months, that's the kind of that puberty time, isn't it? And that's when things go a little bit crazy anyway, hormonally. So dogs they might have a fantastic recall before then, and then it kind of goes a bit sort of pear-shaped afterwards. So always remember, adolescent dogs aren't always the best when it comes to training. That being said, what you need to be thinking about is making you really valuable. So I always think of value. So if the rabbit is more valuable than me, then my dog's going to run for the rabbit and not come back to me. So what am I doing to make my dog think I'm valuable? And that's toy play, especially with a border collie cross. You play tuggy, make yourself super, super valuable. And then the dog's going to look at the rabbit, go, yeah, but mum's much better than me. So much better than the rabbit. So I'm just going to hang around here.
The
other thing is with a yeah, no, honestly, it's true. Invest the time in building that bond with your dog, and then the dog's not interested in what's out in the big wide world.
And what about if it's a dog that's bred to chase rabbits?
So if it's a dog, so that's a bit different, isn't it? Because that's that instinct.
Yes.
And then you've got to put some training in to stop them getting into that predator-prey drive, which is what they're sort of moving into. Yes. Once they're in that prey drive, no, it's really hard to pull them out, I have to admit. The other thing is if you call your dog, we just use a name to call the dog. We don't use the come or here or anything like that. We just use a name. If they don't come back, we go and get them, and we don't allow them to ignore their names. We don't go and grab them and drag them back or anything like that. It's all nicely done, but we just bring them back to where we asked them to come, and then we release them again and call them back straight away, and then they come back, and then it's all good.
And treats.
Don't let them. Yeah, definitely. So if you think about, dogs like to get paid for their work. If they come back to you, then give them a treat or give them something. Border collies love to play tuggy. That's probably more valuable than treats. But some dogs like Labradors are quite obsessed with treats. That's a bit of a stereotype there, but it's probably quite true. But just give them something so that when they come back, it's a positive experience. And And if they don't come back for ages, don't tell them off when they come back, because they never want to come back again.
Of course.
Yeah. I
It's
hear people.
tempting to do that, isn't it? But it
It
doesn't
is,
work.
and I see people in the parks all the time shouting at their dogs to come back, and the dogs are looking and going, "I ain't coming back to that." So
What about a dog that sniffs every single lamppost?
yeah. So there's a couple of schools of thoughts on that. If you want your dog to be walking to perfect heel, then clearly sniffing is not a good thing. But then why are we taking our dog out for a walk? It's meant to be enriching for the dog's life. So if we don't allow our dog to sniff when they're out on the walk, what's in it for the dog? It's a bit boring, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
They've got
just
to
that
stay at
some
home.
dogs will sniff
So,
everything and others will trot along happily. So they're just different breeds,
yes.
I guess.
It is. Spaniels nose down on the ground all the time, pretty much. So what we incorporate the sniffing into the walk. So if I'm walking down a high street and there's maybe 5 or 6 trees or a lamppost or something like that, I'll let them sniff every other one, just so it's not dragging me around, sort of thing. And then what you can do is you can go up to a lamppost, get them in a sit, and then say, "Go sniff" or "Go search," whatever you want to call it. So you give them permission to go and sniff. And that's quite a nice way of putting that on cue.
Yes, that's great.
Then you know it's happening. But yeah, it's a natural thing for a dog to sniff, isn't it?
Yes.
And in fact, why wouldn't we let them do that?
Just sometimes it takes hours and hours.
Yeah, but remember, they don't care where they're going.
No.
They're not in a rush to get anywhere. It's only us.
Only us, yeah. Okay, this is from Mr. Barks a lot. Mr. Barks a lot goes, a question about dogs. How do you stop a dog from barking when they hear noises outside, like a car driving past, and especially a knock at the door?
Yeah, so got to think about why they're barking. Okay, normally dogs will bark because it's a fear response. So particularly the knock on the door. If you think about it from a dog's perspective, there's this big door in front they can't see through, and there's this massive loud noise, and it's quite scary for them, so they bark. That's why we get guard dogs. That's what guard dogs are bred for, isn't it? The things outside will bark and bark and bark at them through the window, and of course they go away. So the barking is to get rid of them. So every time they bark at something outside, they go away. So they get reinforced that the barking gets rid of it.
I see.
So the only way to stop the barking, yeah,
I see.
they're kind of self-rewarding. So people, I'm a nightmare. If I walk past your house and your dog barks at me, I just stand still. I might be there for an hour. But if I move, I'm reinforcing your dog's bad behaviour. So it's not a good thing.
We need to educate
have parties,
the passers-by.
It's true. It's not good. Have a party and get some people to come around. Just keep walking past and stopping, and your dog gets used to it. But the easiest thing is just to stop them from looking out the window. I know it's kind of, we're not training, but actually, if you take the behaviour away from a dog, sometimes it just disappears anyway because they're not reinforcing and it's not becoming a habit. But I would be more worried about the stress levels that I don't know what kind of dog it is, I probably didn't say, but the stress levels of that dog would be more worrying if it starts barking at everything. And it's probably down to the socialization, the habituation they maybe didn't do when it was a puppy.
Right. And some sliding doors, for example, you can't really stop them,
No, it's difficult. Yeah.
Because they're little, right down
Yeah.
at the bottom of the window. All right,
Yeah.
so that's a good tactic though, but you'd have to leave a sign outside your house if it faces the road saying, "Please stop and wait until our dog stops barking at you."
Imagine it, can't you?
All right, this is another one about barking. What should I do if somebody else's dog charges me barking aggressively?
At the person?
Yeah, at a person, yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, well, that's a difficult one, isn't it? We all know what problems that can cause. So first thing is to stand very still, okay? And don't make eye contact with a dog because you don't know the dog, and often a dog that you don't know, eye contact can be a challenge, and we definitely don't want to challenge the dog. That being said, you've got to be super, super calm, okay? The calmer you are, the less interesting you are. And dogs are only interested in interesting people. So if you're very quiet, one thing I would recommend is you tuck your hands up. Don't put your hands down by your side. Some people would say that. Dogs like to sniff and nibble fingers, so put them up, across your chest maybe. And literally, you've got to be brave enough to stand there and hope that the owners of the dog come over and take them away. But if you start sort of, oh, get off and all those kind of things like that, the dog's going to think it's a great game. It's going to jump all over you. It might not be aggressive. It might be scared, but it's still going to start jumping all over you. So I kind of imagine, I think of my feet. I know some people think of a tree, but I don't know how to be a tree, but I do know how to think of my feet. And when you think of your feet, you kind of ground yourself, and then you become really, really boring. The dog will normally come over, give you a sniff, and then run off to the next person that's screaming.
I heard, Darren, that if you just turn your back on them and don't look at them and stand very still, that might work. Is that true or not true?
Anytime you don't look at the dog, definitely not going to have that kind of interaction. But for me, if I've got a dog growling at me, I'm not going to look at them, but I don't want to turn my back on them because I don't know where they are then.
They might jump
I
on
still
you.
want to,
Right.
yeah, I still want to see them in my peripheral vision, definitely. It's a horrible situation to be in, definitely. And you just got to hope that somebody else is going to come and help you. If they do anything really stupid, then the recommendations are to roll into a ball and protect your head and tuck your hands in. And just hopefully it's not going to go any further than that.
Oh, horrible.
Crossed, yeah, not
good. This is about a collie. Claire from Otautahi says, my border collie barks when I go into a shop. I almost got banned from a cafe. I rehomed her at 7. I can't take her in the car, barking and leaping around.
So a couple of issues there by the sounds of it.
Yes.
The barking outside, that's another type of barking. That's not fear barking. That's attention seeking. That's like a little kid going me, 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 me. And we reinforce that. And one of the things that I want to talk about was about our incidental reinforcement of behaviors.
Yes.
So every time we talk to our dogs, we look at them, we touch them, we treat them, we play with them, we're reinforcing a behavior that they've just done. That makes sense.
Right. Every time the
every time
behavior they've just done. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much every time we interact with a dog, we're reinforcing something because we're giving it attention. Yeah. So if my dog's barking and I say, stop barking, I'm actually giving it energy. I'm reinforcing it. So it keeps happening because the dog's only doing it to get attention, to get our interaction, isn't it?
So if you go, be quiet, then that's not a good idea.
We're actually reinforcing that behavior. We're kind of barking with them, even giving a little sing-song maybe. Yeah. The easiest thing is to be quiet. When they stop, then say, what a good dog, and then give them a treat when they're quiet. And that's that positive reinforcement that we're looking for rather than that negative reinforcement.
What if they don't stop, though?
Well, they always will. They'll get bored at some point. The longest I've ever had a dog in the car, and it's about half an hour of constant barking, and then it stopped. And I used clicker training, which is a positive reinforcement tool. And I clicked and then gave a treat. And then we barked again for another 10 minutes. And then I clicked and treated. And then we barked for 5 minutes. And then slowly it went down and we stopped barking.
That's all right for you. But what about the neighbours?
Yeah, make sure you do it in a field or a park in the middle of nowhere. Right, try that in the country.
If somebody's got a dog and it barks at people who are walking past and they're outside, yelling at it's not going to help because you're just getting into a little barking game with it. But you've got to stop it because it must annoy everybody.
Yeah, so obviously, if you can stop people to talking to your dog, it's gonna help you. But you want to give that dog an alternative behavior. So when they start barking, what we want to do is we want to get them into a sit or a down, a behavior that we train outside of the barking. So don't try and train that while they're barking. Train something outside when it's nice and calm, and then there's a real high value behavior. And then when they do that behavior, you say sit. But they might, if they kicked off and they've gone too far, they're not going to listen to you. So you need to pull them away from the person and then ask for that sit. It's called an opposite behavior, opposing behavior.
An opposing behavior, yes. Okay.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
This one's from Louise, and Louise has quite a few problems with Lulu. My wee dog Lulu is incredibly naughty. She has terrible food aggression. She's very well fed and has food on demand. Shall I go through the list or do you want them one at a time?
Sounds like they're all the same.
Okay. She
go on, go for them.
Okay, she bullies her big sister Nessa Bear and steals her treats. She literally attacks anyone who gets between her and something she wants, and she barks at anything. Lulu is much loved. She has a big walk every day. She lives inside but has access to a huge garden. She sleeps in a person bed. She is treated very kindly all the time. We try to discipline her with growling, never loudly, and withdrawal of treats, but it makes no difference. What can we do for Lulu to become a nicer little girl? That's from Louise.
Right, so it's understanding what this resource, it's called resource guarding, okay? Understanding what this guarding of food is all about. So resource guarding is where a dog will guard something it values really highly. Right? So that's normally food. It might be a person, it might be a toy. Yep.
Yep, sorry, carry on.
Yeah. So it's basically where it's guarding something it thinks is really valuable. So like food normally, yeah. So if you think about what you're doing there, if you're taking the food away from it, you're making it even more valuable. So she's going to guard it even more next time. So the one thing we don't do when we've got resource guarding is take everything away from them, because it just makes it something they want to hold on to even more, and they'll literally protect it with their life. So I would, in this case, have food around. You've got 2 dogs, so that might be a bit harder. It's always difficult when you've got 2 dogs. But you don't want to feel that resource isn't available. I would get a dog trainer in to help. Definitely you're going to need help on this one.
That's a hard one, isn't it?
It's a really serious issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you've got 2 dogs there.
Right. Yeah. But Lulu's behaviour generally is due to what? If you've had a dog since it was little.
Yeah, so normally that kind of resource guarding over food starts as a puppy,
right.
And it's normally where the puppy didn't get as much food as they wanted. They may have been a complete pig, but they didn't get as much food as they thought they should have got. So they've grown up with that idea that they have to sort of covet food and keep hold of it and protect it with their life.
Right, so and you're very, very big on positive reinforcement, as you've told us, and it really has a huge impact on them. So you've got to give them positive choices all the time. It's hard though. It can be hard for people to do that.
It is, and it's always easier just to sort of like fall back to shouting and telling a dog off. But again, if you think about it, if we're shouting and telling a dog off when they're doing something we don't like, we're reinforcing the behaviour. So we're actually making a rod for our own back when we're telling them off.
Oh my goodness, I'm guilty.
Yeah, I know. So like I say, the best thing is to sort of let them finish what they're doing and then catch them doing something really positive and then give them that reward.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Simon says, my sister's dog has started snapping at humans, threatening to bite. This is very stressful for her. Can anything be done? Former rescue dog.
Former rescue dog. Does it have any age or anything?
No.
No.
Simon, text us with what age the dog is.
With a rescue dog, depending on how long you've had it, you don't know what the background is. So there could be a trigger. In fact, I was training a dog today where the owners is a little bit aggressive with people, and the owners have done such wonderful things, but then they put on this blue shirt and the dog just went crazy and towards the owner with the blue shirt. And that was definitely a trigger, or would have been a trigger that the dog would have had before they had it. So it might just be a trigger that's just appeared and the dog started to key into that behavior. It's probably fear-based, and if it's a rescue dog, it's probably because they haven't been socialized, which maybe if we've got time we can talk about quickly.
Yes, do tell me. Yep, we've got a bit of time.
So if you've got a puppy coming up or an older dog, doesn't matter, you still do it. It just takes a bit longer with older dogs. You've got to build positive associations with the things in their life. So say, for example, I see a tree or a chair even, right? And I'm scared of that chair. If that chair does something bad to me, then I'm going to be scared of that chair all my life. But if I get a treat every time I see a chair, I'm going to like chairs. And that's called habituation. So the more I see the object that I'm scared of, the more positive reinforcement treat-wise I get, or praise, then I'm going to think it's less scary. Yeah. So what we want to think about is have a list of all the things that our dogs are sort of worried and stressed about, and then take them to them far enough away so they're not reacting and getting worried, and then just give them lots of treats. And they're going to look at the object, then get a treat, look at the object, and then get a treat. Really important you don't hold the treat in front of the dog first, that the treat's behind your back. And I know it sounds like just a little tiny thing, but it's really important, because then the dog sees the thing they're scared of and then gets a reward, as opposed to seeing the treat and then seeing the thing they're scared of and then not taking treats, because treats are precursors to scary things.
Oh, gee, that's
really
real
important to get that right,
isn't it?
Yeah, really important, that one. So many dogs just don't take treats when they're scared, and that's the reason, because they think the treat is a precursor to that scary thing.
To the scary thing happening. Okay, so you keep it behind your back. And what are the treats that you use?
We use all sorts. A little tip that I do is I go to the shop and I buy maybe 10 little samples of different treats, and I'll take one of each and I'll throw them on the ground with my dog, and I'll just watch which one my dog goes for first. And that gives me a hierarchy of treats. So the one that they go for first is going to be the one I'm probably going to use outside, because it's got high value. And then the one they go for last will be the stuff I do indoors, where I don't need a real high value treat. It's normally the smelliness, but my dogs love pilchards. Fish is always going to work. Wear some gloves. But fish is always going to work when you're outside. Definitely. You
must go through a lot of dog food.
We do, yeah. we don't have kids, so basically all our money goes into the dogs.
How often do you go shopping for your dogs?
We're very fortunate. We've got places that we can buy wholesale.
Oh,
So,
that's good. Good to
but
hear.
we probably go through 6 bags a month, I guess,
Six
something like that.
bags of what?
Of
Like sacks.
sort of dry food, yeah, dry food, something like that.
Oh, that's very, very interesting. Thank you very much, Darren. That's fantastic. And I hope we answered everybody's questions. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Not a problem.
That's
It's been a real pleasure.
Yep, that's Darren Rowe going back to his 7 dogs and his wife, and there's probably other members of the family as well.